Hello, my name is Marq Jones, and this is my defining moment story. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I've been through a lot. I purchased my first home at 26 years old. I've been married for 11 years. I have 3 kids. I had my first TED Talk this year, and I'm proud of that. I'm grateful for that opportunity. But there's so much that I want to talk about. Obviously, I know I have limited time, but you know, to make a long story short, I say this: um, grateful, gratitude. Um, as I go through this book right here, as I go through this book right here, is teaching me a whole different understanding of gratitude. You know, I was homeless at the age of 19. And when I was homeless, that's also what that was around the same time when I found my faith as well. And going through that season, that was one defining moment when I realized that life had so much more to offer than the things that I had thought that, like the materialistic things I was after at that age. But even to go a little bit back further, in my upbringing, I was brought up in a very rough environment, and I struggled a lot with security. I was very insecure as a kid, as a teenager, because I'm trying to live up and down to these standards. I grew up in the hood, and what I mean by the hood is like one of those type of situations where you just you have drugs. I sold crack, I sold weed, I sold pills, I did drugs, I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of, or wasn't proud of. I'm not proud of to this day. I don't do those things anymore. But the thing I had to realize is, I couldn't continue that life, even when I became 19. But even to dive into what kind of put me into that environment, I was 17 years old when I found out who I thought was my father wasn't my father. And it came at a very devastating blow, a very hard argument with who I thought was my father at the time. My mother had me when she was 13 years old. She had my brother when she was 14. So it was me and my brother. And my mother was very young. And she had this guy that would come around. He was in and out of prison pretty much all of my life. But for the most part, when I was 17 years old, we got into an argument when he had got out of prison because I was mad. I was angry. He was in and out of my life every time he came around. He'd be around for a couple weeks and then he'd go, and he was addicted to drugs. He was a crackhead. So we got into an argument and it came out, I'm not your father anyway. And after that, I kind of blacked out in a sense because I couldn't believe it. It was a lot. So I was in a substance abuse back then. I drank a lot. I smoked a lot of weed, and I did a lot of stuff. But he ended up telling me that my father was my grandfather's friend, and that he had raped my mother when she was 13 years old, which is how I was conceived. And when he told me that, I felt even more worthless. I'm like, I'm a rape baby, really, and I've struggled with suicide. I had 2 failed suicide attempts, or I would say, moments where I came up to wanting to do it, and I couldn't go through with it. But even with that, being said, I carried this weight of unworthiness, this weight of I don't care about my life. I don't care if I lived. I don't care if I died. So I pretty much was like a crash dummy. I'm just doing everything I can, uh, for the most part, to try to, I guess, kill myself in a sense or destroy my life. From just popping pills, driving reckless. I mean, hanging out in places, shooting places, and it was just this whole life of crime, and I was intentionally doing stuff just because it was like criminal. And the thing that really changed my life was when I was 19 years old, and my faith is the biggest part of my life. And when at 19 years old I was born again, I became a Christian. Even I was grew up in the church, I was I guess calling myself a Christian, but I noticed a big change once I decided to make that decision on my own as an adult. And it was definitely a supernatural experience. I've written about it before in other books, where I just had this whole different way of seeing things. It was like Jesus came and just said, "Stop doing this. You're loved. You're appreciated. You don't have to keep doing this." And I can dive into that story, but I know I don't have that much time for that particular story because that story is definitely a very long story. But to say the least, once I was born again, I didn't care about all the things that I had went through because I felt like, okay, I have a purpose. Obviously everything happened for a reason. So my goal was to just tell everybody about Jesus, when I first got born again. And even that's when I realized, like, oh, no one likes Jesus. No one like to be preached at. No one like to be preached to. And so I kind of just put it on the shelf in a sense. I just like, I'll just go about my life, even though I still believed in God and I still followed Jesus and I did everything I could not to do things that I knew was displeasing to him. And then for the most part, I fell into what I call a thirst traps. So I mean, that's just kind of like a small part of like the beginning of my struggles, you know, from homelessness to finding my faith, and really just trying to find purpose in life. Um, the thing that I realize about life and everything that I'm learning even now is that you're constantly learning. Even as I became a father, I have two sons and a daughter, and I never had a father. I had father figures that I looked up to, but no one that was really involved in my life, that really kind of showed me the ropes and a lot of things. So it was kind of me winging a lot of stuff, trying to learn as much as I could to make sure I don't steer them the wrong way. And I would say I did make a lot of parenting mistakes early in my parenting with my 9 year old. And it's like, okay, now that I have a 3 year old, I'm not making those same mistakes. But the thing that I did have to come to realize is I have to be okay with just not having all the answers. Um, I love this book. I love this book right here. I've read a lot of books. I mean, I read. I try to read at least 2 books a month. And I'm a big self-help type of person. I love, just really diving into self-help books. But throughout all the books that I've really looked into or really um, read, no one really dealt with, becoming confident. You know, they talk about how to do all these things. I mean, even when I was a sales guy, I mean, and that's another thing. I was really good at sales. I went through the mortgage company, through all the mortgage Quicken Loans, Rocket Mortgage, a few other mortgage companies. I climbed to the top of the ranks. I was top sales producers and things like that. So I mean, I went through the whole industry, and that was another thing that kind of was a very, very difficult point in my life because I found myself not being able to be free. And as I learn myself, I'm learning, okay, I can be me because I do have like this more so urbanish type of vibe, but I also know how to be corporate as well because I was raised in the ghetto, I was raised in the hood, but I also, went to work in corporate America, climbed the ladders, and I was in, a white collar environment for like the majority of my sales career. So you kind of almost, you know, have to know how to navigate both sides. Okay, if I'm in the hood, I can, talk, I guess, their language, quote unquote, or I can even go to, a white collar environment and, speak their language as well. But the thing that was always, I would say, the hardest thing is I couldn't necessarily be myself in a sense because you feel like you have to measure up and down to these standards. You have to, you know, you can't be truthful, you can't be honest with some of the things that you obviously that you want to say. But even more so, the thing that really made me leave that environment was because when they started to try to obviously come up against my morals and values, and that was the biggest dilemma that I had because with my faith, in the sales, sales can be very, very, very manipulative, and me being in a sales environment where sales is like is more than just a it's more than just a job, it's a culture. So when you have a sales culture, nothing matters but the bottom line, and nothing matters, besides closing the sale, and anything can go out the window to get, the sale closed. And I could not throw my morals and values out the window to close sales. And that's when I had to step away from, the sales industry. But I did still, learn a lot. I still appreciate. So I'm not saying that all sales are bad, but the thing I had to learn was, okay, just because I may have had a bad experience, don't make it bad. And that was going to be the next thing I was going to talk about in my, you know, the this I want to say it's more than just a story. It's like my lifelong video monologue in a sense. I want to make it into that, but you know, uh, the moment that I realized too that this is going to be a never-ending thing was when I went to a quote unquote church and looking to get healing, looking to get edified, looking to get guidance, and you know, the defining moment in that particular season was when I found out that church wasn't a church. It was in fact a cult. So um, those things are very, and I say that, you know, um, boldly in the sense where, okay, that particular place I was in was in fact a cult, but you do have a lot of people that have been in through churches where they will call it a cult, or they will say, something's wrong with that church because they had a bad experience, because the pastor may have said something wrong, or the pastor may have accidentally, did something to someone, and now their church hurt. But I didn't know spiritual abuse was a real thing until I went through the fake church that was actually a cult, and I realized that they were literally preying on people that were wounded, that were broken, that were, desperate, looking for God, but they came into an organization that literally just um, exploited the things that they came, to get healing, for, like brokenness, fatherlessness, um, traumatic situations, people that have been, obviously sexually abused, verbally, physically abused, and you're going to a church, looking for healing, looking for restoration, looking for guidance in life, and how to, obviously live as Jesus will live, and do things the right way. But come to find out, they're using the Bible to really cast judgment, make you feel less than, make you feel, like you're not worthy of life, making you feel like you're forever a sinner, and that you have to live up and down to these expectations of this organization if you want to make it to heaven, And I know that there is a lot that I have to say, and a lot that I can go into as far as into that story in particular. But the one thing, for the sake of time, is learning how to trust again, and remaining vulnerable will always, keep you in a place of of being able to be healed. Because the thing that I had to realize, when I came out of that organization, that false church, was the fact that I immediately said I'm never going to allow someone to talk to me about God. In fact, I had a disdain towards God, because I'm like, well, God, if you was real, you wouldn't have let me go through that. And I'll take that. I didn't believe that he wasn't real. I was more so, you know, um, frustrated that he allowed me to go through that, because I went through this whole if God was real phase when I was 18, 19 years old. But no, I'm sorry. In 2018, I went through that. I wrote a letter to God in 2018. So how old was I? 2018. That was, shoot, I was about 28 years old, I think. I wrote a letter to God because things were happening in my life that I did not understand. But after I came out of the fake church, the thing that was hard for me to do was to really be in a community of faith. anyone that spoke about God or anyone that called themselves to be a man of God or woman of God, I always kind of looked at them with a different type of like a, are you sure? Like, are you an agent? Are you, and obviously though, and what I realized that as life is an onion, these things like that are very real, very real. I mean, you do have, people that operate, as double agents, and I had to understand that I cannot blame God for some of the situations that I put myself in, because I do have to admit that, you know, um, I did end up going to organization, and he did give me red flags, it, but I did end up putting my faith and trust in man over and above God. And that was one of those things where it's even said it in the Bible that they rather worship the creature rather than the creator. And make a long story short, is really because of the things that I was looking for. I was looking for a father figure. I was looking for, approval. I was looking for someone to tell me good job, or looking to fulfill a need, to be needed, or to actually contribute to, someone, or to feel like I found my place, I found my tribe, and found my purpose. And here I am looking for all of that. And yeah, it gets exploited, it gets manipulated. But to make a long story short, I end up writing a book about them. I ended up, doing what is necessary, what I know God put on my heart to, expose them. And actually, here's one of the books I've written. It's called The Omega Network: The Soldiers of Darkness. And that's just another. And I also written a book called God Brokers. God Brokers. This is just a book that talks about, how things like this happen, in a lot of different religious organizations and like churches and stuff like that. I'm not trying to um, persuade anybody to stop going to church or don't believe that they should go to church, but the main, objective of my message would be to examine your heart, you know, um, see really what your motives are, what are your intentions? What is God telling you to do? My main goal, if anything, is to empower people to become more in tune with hearing the voice of God themselves. Because I feel like a lot of people don't teach that enough. So okay, well, this is how you hear from God, and the thing is, people hear God differently. So when I hear people teaching people how to hear from God, I really don't believe that's something that someone can per se teach. I do believe that it can be something that someone can provide their personal experience and then also provide practical techniques and practices and their best practices to develop their relationship with God, so where they can hear from God on a moment to moment basis, instead of going to someone to say, okay, well, essentially, can you talk to God for me? And that's where a lot of things have gone wrong, with the church, and the things that I see that people are doing, in the name of faith, in the name of Jesus, trying to, I guess, quote unquote, help people. But in reality, they're hurting them, because they're not teaching them how to connect with God. They're teaching them how to connect with themselves. But nevertheless, I know I said a lot. Even in this moment, I'm going through a transitional season. Just moved. Me and my family, we're in a new location, and we're just trying to get settled in, and the school going, the three kids, and just really trying to manage everything. It's been great, for one, because I mean, I kind of like a challenge. It's fun, and being having that things are kind of rebuilding, and you're it's not like the I don't like stuff being so cyclical where you're just in, everything is, the same. But I'm definitely just in this process of, I'm still trying to finish these books here. These I'm trying to knock these out. I'm trying to knock both these books out. And that's really it. And the thing that I always will say is, learning is like an onion. You know, it's like it's layers to everything. That's the thing that I've learned, even in this book right here. Because I thought I had it down pat. I thought I had it down pat. I thought I knew obviously where your focus goes, your energy flows. I thought I knew, okay, this is how you be positive, but the things that's in this book has literally, just poured truth on a lot of ways that I believed, and more so just gave me more substance to what I already knew. But I feel like when I understand it deeper, then it takes me even higher, and I'm more equipped, and I'm able to deal with life even better because of a greater understanding of things. You know, it's so much in this book, but nevertheless, that's it. I do plan on doing a couple more videos if necessary to dive into certain other stories, but I wanted to at least get this done. And thank you so much, Tara, for just being who you are, just being authentic, being vulnerable, um, building a platform, being obedient. You just don't know how just much how reciprocal and everything, and being a blessing like that. I mean, it's wild that I feel like this book is literally, you talk about what's the name of this thing again, defining moments. I just think about the fact that the simplest thing, and I mean this is not, this is not a simple thing, but just sending me a book in the mail. And I know I've tried to send people things, and I'm praying, I hope they read it, I hope they read it, I hope they, but as simple as that gesture was, I mean, it's huge. And I thank you so much for it. And I look forward to everything going forward. I'm grateful now more than ever. More than ever. You have no idea. It's definitely a whole new level of gratitude. That's what I'm at, a new level of gratitude. And I'm just thankful. Thank you.